Hello and welcome to this week's Property Matters, the show that brings global industry trends to an Irish audience. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Your host today is Carol Talon and myself, Brian Fox.
And we are joined by PJ Appleton, Global Head of Communications at Equiem. Thank you so much for being with us. So,
great to be here.
PJ, this morning you were over at an event that I was involved in, PlaceTech, one of our respected UK brands and publishers, hosted an event talking about technology. And we've previously spoken to one of your colleagues, Adam, about the work that Equiem is doing. So look, you might just give our listeners a brief reminder about what Equiem does.
Sure, thanks very much for having me again. Equiem, we're the world's leading tenant experience tech provider, and our platform's deployed across some 60 million square feet of prime commercial space around the world. So we were founded in Australia. We're also rolled out in the USA and UK, where we launched in 2017. And now we've been here in Ireland for about a year, where we've got 3 sites. And effectively, our tech helps landlords to attract and retain tenants. That's really what we're all about, really by providing a sort of vibrant, exciting and connected workspace for them to enjoy. And it does that kind of in 2 ways. Number one is we are able to sort of supercharge everything that a landlord is able to provide their tenants. So whether it's sort of events, experiences, amenities, services, all of that sort of stuff. We also provide a sort of hub through which landlords can give their tenants of seamless communication, so letting them know all the sorts of things that are happening on site, on a campus, across their building, so it acts as a sort of communication hub as well. And then also it helps landlords as well unlock additional asset value. So whether it be being able to monetize certain facilities, whether it's lockers or bike racks, you name it. So that adds another element. And then the second thing it does really is, and this is something we're really excited about and that we've launched a little bit, sort of relaunched earlier this year, is our analytics feature, which runs over the top of the platform and really sort of records everything that tenants are doing on the platform. With their permission, of course. And what that does is it provides landlords with really sort of vital data, really about how their tenants are interacting with their building. And what we're able to do is sort of present landlords with really easy to understand dashboards that show them, look, this is when your tenants are buying this product from your retailer, this is when they're going along to that yoga class, this is when they're doing whatever it might be. And that just enables landlords to really, make sort of smarter, more effective asset management decisions. Yeah. And those are really the 2 elements of data and the hub itself.
Can you give us some examples around, maybe some specifics around that? Because I presume when you're taking that amount of data, you have to really understand how to use it. Mm-hmm. So are you applying some element of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're acutely aware that actually, as soon as you mention the word artificial intelligence or data to commercial landlords, it's a bit of a turn off for them. So,
well, I think it's changing.
It is changing. You're right.
I think that last year and the year before, data was seen as a burden. It was seen as a liability and something to be feared. And there was a huge fear around managing it. But I actually think in 2019 and as we head into 2020, I think there's a huge understanding that actually there's great power in the data if it's used properly and used responsibly and actually actioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I don't think landlords have ever doubted the potential of data and analytics. I think it's more the kind of how do you go from just gathering things to really analysing it in a meaningful way. And really what our dashboards do is collect all this information and provide different sort of say dashboards that really sort of set out that information in an understandable way. So this is when your tenants are all coming into the building. This is the hours at which they're using retail the most, even down to things like, this is the coffee that they're ordering most on site. So actually, you better make sure that your stocks of whatever coffee brand, it's always in stock. So it's that sort of information. And really, I guess that does a couple of things. Number one, it helps landlords to really create this tailored sort of hospitality experience, and that is obviously so key in the workplace now, particularly with millennials. I hate using that word, but we're so used to having everything tailored to us, so used to having this kind of consumer approach to loads of different things. I got an Uber here, I was able to order it, I know exactly when it's coming. Okay, it didn't always turn up on time, but I have that kind of consumer approach with so many different elements, and it's the same with work now, and so landlords can then sort of tailor everything they're doing in their workplace so it fits perfectly with the tenants in that building. And then second is they're also making real sort of capital savings. And actually, we've had landlords that say, well, look, we want to roll out a €3 million gym in our building. Do you think that'd be a good idea? And we're saying, well, actually, look, based on these dashboards, that you can see that actually no one's really using the existing gym. Everyone's actually going along to yoga classes, or they're going along to that cycling club. They're doing they want to do everything in classes. Actually, spending €3 million on a gym might not actually be the best approach for your particular project. So it's that sort of stuff. But I mean, data is really exciting for us. As I say, it's a relaunch for us, and we feel that's really where the future of the platform's going.
Absolutely.
So what you're really trying to do is give consumers or tenants, I suppose, better value for money.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I think it comes down to the fact that now I think what we've really seen over the last 5 years is maybe a sort of a power shift in terms of commercial real estate dynamics. So in the past, perhaps I suppose landlords have been able to provide a product, and I think market factors have kind of really all been in their favour. So it's been comparatively easy to kind of have tenants come in. Tenants haven't expected a great deal from their workplace, and the burden of responsibility for the end user has really been on the corporate tenant to provide them with filtered coffee or.
And is that shifting though?
Absolutely.
Is the demand? Are employees demanding more of their work environments?
Yeah, I think there's a few factors behind it. I think obviously the rise of the sort of the FANG tech companies, the kind of Facebooks, the Amazons, all those guys, that's really driven the sort of the bar for workplace amenities up, and that in turn obviously filters down. I think also what you're seeing is a sort of an issue with talent attraction and retention. So certainly in America and increasingly in the UK and Ireland, one of the biggest problems companies have is attracting top STEM talent, digital talent. And so actually what that means is they're having to use the workplace almost as another means of pulling that talent in. It's no longer enough just to say, right, here's a nice salary, but you're going to work at a terrible building. Actually, you need to provide both. Yeah. And all our research suggests that actually the workplace is perhaps even more important than salary. So what we're saying is actually in that sort of that war for talent that companies have is now the landlord's war for tenant. Because if you're not helping a tenant, attract and retain the best workers, actually, that tenant's going to go elsewhere to a building that will help them with that process.
Yeah.
And I think those things are just driving the sort of the bar up, if you like.
And, this is a topic actually that we got into in quite a lot of detail over the last couple of weeks, and we had Anthony Slumbers from the UK over to talk about space as a service. So it's definitely something that landlords are aware of. It's a trend that they're very much on top of. But what I'm more interested in, because I think that tenant engagement is absolutely one of the key trends for proptech for 2020. So that's something that I feel is going to continue to grow, and landlords, both residential and commercial, will see the value of that. But what I'm really interested in, you're the head of global communications.
That's right, yeah.
So how have you been, a shift has started, but you were there before that shift started. So from a marketing point of view, what are the types of challenges you've had? Because this is a traditional industry. You've been going in and trying to sell a very contemporary solution to a very conservative and traditional industry. So, how did those early deals come about?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think, first off, I think that's the thing I find most exciting about my job is we're at a stage where the whole industry is changing so quickly. But you're right. I mean, back in 2011, when we were founded, comparatively for proptech, we're quite an old company. We're a very agile company. I want to make that point. We're a comparatively experienced company. And initially, we were born out in response to a problem, which was a big landlord in Melbourne, Australia, was struggling to attract and retain tenants. They were going elsewhere. And really, the owner of that building saw the opportunity for technology to really supercharge what they could offer through that building. So, in that sense, the buy-in from our first client was straightforward enough because that was his idea. And Australia, because it's a slightly sort of tighter market in the sense there are really sort of a handful of REITs that own most of the buildings there. They saw one company doing this well. Actually, it filtered down quite quickly. The issue is now, since expanding to Ireland, the UK, the USA, it's all quite new. Tenant experience technology is very new. And I think probably the challenge, certainly from my side, is to get their buy-in, is really kind of speaking in a language that people understand. And I think this is an issue that proptech probably has, is that there are a lot of providers out there who turn up with their technology, and albeit it's fantastic technology, but really they just expect the landlord to sort of
understand
it straight away, exactly,
yeah.
And to be excited about it. And I think the issue is you have to start with a problem, or you have to start with look, this is something, a challenge that we can help you guys solve. Forget the technology for a moment. These are the sort of results it could enact in your business. And so I think my challenge in terms of being someone in comms is not to in some ways shine a spotlight on our technology, in as much as it's to shine a spotlight on the challenges, the war for tenant, the war for talent, all that sort of stuff. And really talking in terms of revenues, talking in terms of rents, talking in terms of leasing, all that sort of stuff, rather than saying platforms, data, AI,
solution orientated.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
But one of the main criticisms, and this has been levelled more in the UK than in Ireland, because we don't have the same stats here in Ireland. But in the UK, one of the major criticisms that has been levied against proptech startups is that they are all providing, or they've all identified problems, and they all think their problem is an important one to be solved. And to the buying industry, they will actually say, well, yes, it's a problem, but actually it's not a very big problem, that we have priorities. And so there's this disjointed nature and approach to solving maybe problems that the estate agents and the commercial agents are aware of, but it's just not a priority. And so there you have the challenge to really sell in terms of value.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. And I think you say actually they're providing tech in response to problems. I think sometimes the problems are, they're almost trying not to create them. I wouldn't go that far, but to almost make them seem bigger than they necessarily are.
But I don't think that's deliberate. Actually, what I've discovered is it's a little bit like it's self-affirming when startups are delving so deep. They've identified a problem, so they research that problem. And the more they research it, the larger the problem is. And then as they go and try to find solutions, all it does is reinforce the problem that they've identified. So in fact, genuinely, I see most of the proptech startups that I speak to, they all think they're solving the biggest problem.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, look, I think I guess in some ways that's the excitement and the dynamism of this industry. It is quite exciting in that. I think it is exciting in that sense. But I go back, in terms of us, I go back to the fact that we really were born out of a genuine problem
in Australia.
And it really was something that the landlord was struggling with. So we know it wasn't just a kind of tech fad or anything like that. And I think the other thing is, hey, look, it's taken me 10 minutes before I mentioned WeWork, but it was going to happen, wasn't it? But I think WeWork, okay. That it's clear what the problems have been over the last year, but their whole mantra was elevating the world's consciousness. And actually, I'll have to give them credit. I think they have done that, because actually they've shown the power of a brand, the power of turning sort of property from being very much a kind of product to a service. And actually that is because culture and workplace dynamics are changing. They haven't made that problem. It's just something's happening, and we are sort of one part of that as well, because we're saying to traditional landlords, you don't need to go to a WeWork. You can do it through technology yourselves. Yeah.
I actually don't want to see the WeWork brand completely diminished by all that's happened, because I don't think we can discard the achievements. And in fact, anybody involved, you're in communications like I am. We can't help but admire actually the brand that was built out of being a brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be able to trademark the word
like Hoover.
Yes. Yeah.
No, but WeWork are doing what Regis and other places. So even what they were doing wasn't new. So it was all about the service delivery, and it was exactly that, turning that space into a service. And the customer experience then was elevated, and I do think it was it was maybe a pivotal moment in time as well, that people were ready for something new. But I would hate to see, look, whatever happens, WeWork, their legacy, I think, will need to stand. They did create this change in the market. They did achieve this. So irrespective of what happens next, I think that we need to acknowledge the unbelievable work. I mean, was it one of the first companies to really brand in real estate, like properly brand? And I know traditional estate agents would disagree with me and maintain that they've been doing this for generations. I don't believe that at all. I think that this was the first real big property brand.
Yeah, I mean, look, when we asked people, Adam gave a presentation, our head of BD, a month ago in Dublin. He was saying, look, how many genuine brands can you name in commercial real estate? Like them or hate them, you've got to say, well, WeWork really have gone to a sort of place that nobody else has gone to, and they've done that really, as I say, through really kind of going right to the consumer, to the end user of space, and so that trend is not going to go away just because WeWork has had its problems.
And it's an area that's changing anyway, and ripe for change.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just indicative of wider socio-demographic trends. It's not just down to the fact that Adam Newman had a sort of a new idea. It's not a new idea. It's just the fact that actually culture is now changing to the point that people really do want to consume workspace, not just be in workspace. So
And so what do you think is next? What are we going to see? What are your likely trends for PropTech over the next 12 months?
Gosh, it's a absolutely huge question. I mean, I think, to be honest, we have been encouraged, I think, to see growing adoption of kind of PropTech solutions, particularly over the last 12 months, actually. And the event that we were at this morning, it was interesting at the start, the moderator talking about the fact that we are really going from just talking about PropTech to actually there being case studies and examples of real ROI for people. And I think that's exciting. That shows kind of progression, and we've moved kind of past the early adopters to more kind of widespread adoption of the likes of in our space, tenant experience technology. It's not unusual for people to have that now. It's really we're getting loads of requests for kind of to come in and pitch alongside lots of other providers. So it really is a kind of maturing space. I think in terms of our space, I think, as I say, it will become more and more common for people to have some form of kind of tenant tech. We do everything on mobiles now. I think that's how people expect to consume information about their workplace. It's how they expect to access facilities and services, and so I think that will continue, and we're hopeful of that. But I think the challenges are still pretty sizable. I think we are still moving from this product to service sort of area, and that will take a bit of time. But we're extremely excited. We're extremely positive, and we're really excited for what could happen in Ireland for us as well.
Okay, thank you so much. PJ, thank you for being with us. That was PJ Appleton, Global Head of Communications at Equiem. Stay tuned and for part 2, as we'll be speaking to Eddie O'Driscoll.
And you're very welcome back to Property Matters here in Dublin South FM with Carol Talon and myself, Brian Fox. In the studio now with us is Eddie O'Driscoll of Auctioneera.
That's right.
Eddie, nice to see you back again.
Thanks very much.
So, how have things since we last talked to you?
Yeah, we've had a busy year, great. I think the last time we spoke to you guys, I think we had...
Probably midsummer, was it?
Yeah, and I think we were excited at the time that we had about €4 million of sales agreed or sold, and it seemed like a lot of times, so we've gone over 35 million now, 120, I think 6 properties sold or sale agreed. And we calculate when you apply the traditional 1.5% estate agency fee, we reckon we've returned or saved our vendors in the region of 550,000.
Just to remind listeners, you are nationwide, aren't you?
Well, Cork and Dublin.
Cork and Dublin.
We will be soon.
So tell us, what's the contrast like now between the two regions, Cork and
yeah, great question. I mean, I suppose we're flying it in Dublin. I guess we're a bit more established in Dublin. So I think that when people are selling a property, obviously it's a huge decision. So we thought initially that we'd come to the Dublin market and say, hey guys, so we charge a fixed fee of 1,500 plus VAT, and it's miles cheaper than everybody else. So we thought we'd just take 100% market share in the first month. But I think when you're new coming to the market, and it's such a big decision, it's like, okay, they're a bit new, we're not sure, this seems too good to be true, there must be a catch. So our biggest problem was there must be a catch. So what we found in Dublin now is people have seen our for sale signs around the place. We've got the big for sale signs with the website address on there. They're on our website, so there's the word of mouth there. So the it's too good to be true catch thing, so that's gone in Dublin. What our agents are telling us when they go out and meet people, it's kind of
so you're more or less established now in the Dublin market.
So it's initially when we went out, it was who are you guys, never heard of you, seems interesting, but not sure. But no, it's like like sometimes answering the phone in the office and you're arranging for the agents to go out and it's will he be bringing a photographer?
Right.
And we're saying, well, hold on, we have to meet you, and this guy, it's like we're going with you guys. So then likewise when we hired our agent in Cork, and I'm Cork man myself, and I said, this will be great, and we'll similar sort of dynamic, okay, this works in Dublin, but will it work in Cork? But it's when people see it with their own eyes. So we listed a property in Wilton just this week, which is really great for me because I know the area so well. And we listed a property, and we had the first viewing yesterday. We had 13 people out at the viewing. Somebody they said they really wanted the property, offered €20,000 over the guide price.
And was the guide price on
the guide price was legit, so we're definitely it's something we've discussed. I'll come back to the guide price because it's a good point on the guide prices. The guide prices, all of our guide prices, and this isn't just spin. Our guide price is what we think the property is worth based on the research, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But in Wilton, we thought it was a reasonable guide price. It's not distressed or any matter. Not at all. But somebody came in, offered 20,000 over the guide, which isn't normal. So we put a deadline for offers. That's something that worked really, really well for us. So you can go on to anybody who's listening live now, I'd encourage them to go on to auctioneera.ie, click on properties for sale. The top property there will be closing in an hour's time, so you can see the deadline count, and you can see all the other properties with the deadlines counting down. It's brilliant. We've had some really dramatic closes over the last year.
So is it the equivalent of eBay sniping?
People
popping in at the last minute.
Exactly. But we've dealt with that. The first few deadlines that we had, you can imagine we were watching them terrified. Would the technology hold up? Because in terms of the sniping, inevitably people will keep their cards close to their chest until the last minute. So what we do on that is if you make an offer within 2 minutes of the close, we'll add another 2 minutes. So there's no, thankfully, and touch wood, long may it continue, nobody's internet has dropped or anything like that. So basically we've had some really ferocious, we've gone in to closes and within 20 minutes you're 50 grand worth of bidding, because people they're forced to show their hand at that point. You can sit in the long grass for a while, but this thing is closing at 8 o'clock, guys. You better get your offer in here.
I actually love that use of the technology, because prior to using technology, the equivalent would have been properties going to best and final offers. And that's fine in the commercial space or for development land, but I think it's really unfair for first-time buyers or for home buyers going in, because they're just absolutely going blind.
Yeah, and it's not fair. It's not. It's not. So our thing is that it's all up online,
completely transparent.
It's 100% transparent, and if we don't have an offer on a property, it's up on our website, no offers. We're not going to bluff. There's a lot of interest. If there's no offers, we're doing our best for our vendor. We'll put all of the best attributes of the property across. But if there's no offers, there's no offers. If there are offers, they're
shown on the website.
It's all up on the website. It's all transparent. And look, one of the things that we refuted straight off the bat is that we get paid by the vendor and we only represent the vendor, and some estate agents to screw the buyers. On the contrary, the buyers are the people who buy the property. So we think we've as much a responsibility to our buyers as we get paid obviously by our vendors. But if the buyer, I think it was mentioned at the conference today that if the buyers enjoy the platform and if they have trust in it and if they find it easy to use, then they're going to make their genuine highest bid. Whereas if the buyers felt that, I'm being ghost bidded here, I'm being bluffed, I'm going to pull out of this. So by making a really great experience for the buyers, we think we actually ultimately end up serving our vendors, and we've had great feedback from both sides.
There's kind of 2 points mixed in there though. Sorry, Bren. There's 2 points mixed in there. Like, first of all, let's take the latter point first. I think it's good that you're concerned about user experience. I think it's gone far beyond customer experience. It's absolutely about user experience.
Totally.
However, I have long felt that estate agents in Ireland need to be very clear that yes, they work for the vendors. They're paid by the vendors. They work for the vendors, and they represent the interest of the vendors.
They're paid by the vendors with the buyer's money, though. In that, with no buyer, there's no vendors in that. Like for example,
no, I think there needs to be greater clarity around this, and in fact, actually, I think that this is one of the reasons why there has been historically distrust in the industry. It's because that one of the things that I've spoken about before is that sometimes I feel that the estate agents in Ireland are forced to wear too many hats. So they befriend the buyer when they come in, when they're in sales and marketing mode, and get the buyer into the property, and at that stage there's almost a bit of a relationship built up, and then they get into negotiations, and that's generally where, and I've heard it from buyers myself, that's generally where buyers feel the change, and then they feel almost duped. Whereas if from the start people are very clear about the relationship, the reality is that estate agents in Ireland traditionally are paid by the vendor
to get the best price.
And I think we need to be really clear about that, and then let technology.
But I do want to jump in, and not to the abdication of. So I don't.
Not to the abdication, but let's be clear
you have
on
to
who's
get the
paying
best
you.
price, but not that you can go out and bluff and fake bid and so on. So you get the best price in the context of the parameters that you need to be honest and above board and transparent. And so in terms of inverted commas, getting the best price, you sell the property. But I think that some agents take that too far. It's like, I'm representing the vendor and be damned with the buyers. We would refute that. So
well, look, that's just
going too far.
No, and that's creating a poor user experience.
Exactly. Everybody. I mean, the best transactions for us where everybody wins is competitive bidding. The vendor gets a market price. They've saved several thousand euro on the transaction. The buyer feels they've won a fair and competitive open bidding process, and everybody walks away. Even the underbidders say, "Okay, I didn't get the property," but the last thing you want is to feel that the process has been contaminated. I won the bidding, but did that underbidder even exist? Or so I think that you have a responsibility to both sides. I
think that's a really great point about the underbidders. I think that's one of the things that online transparent bidding really helps.
Totally.
The underbidders don't feel shafted.
Absolutely,
because they've seen it play out. They understand, and the opportunity is there if they're able to partake.
The best man won for the the highest bidder, and that's as it should be.
That expression, the best man won.
It's probably the best person won.
But I think that's actually really true in this particular scenario, because in the past, when there wasn't that transparency around bidding, people didn't believe that.
Was there an underbidder at all? And this is what I'm saying, is that I think that by people actually believe, I think we actually get the highest bids out of people, because let's suppose I was in a traditional bidding process, and I put in a bid for 300, and then I get a phone call back from the agent, said, "Eddie, we're going to 305 here." Immediately I'm thinking, we're not going to 305, there's no chance being bluffed. Whereas if I can see, so I might actually be willing to go to 310, but I might pull out because I feel, what, this guy's screwing me here.
That absolutely happens.
Whereas what I'm thinking is, if the 305 is legit, I'll go to 310. So I actually think that by putting the offers online and everybody trusting and believing in the process, we get the best price for the property. And while we're at it, we save you thousands of euro because we're way cheaper than everybody else.
Yeah, look, I'm completely sold on the online bidding platforms. I think that's absolutely the only way to bid, and it's the only way to make offers. I agree with that.
Why do you think some of the agents are so reluctant to? I mean, I still think that. I mean, there's only a handful of, if even that, of us. There's still a lot of
using online bidding systems.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I can tell you exactly what it is, because I've spoken to agents and asked them why they aren't using it. And one of the reasons I hear most frequently,
I know you're undermining the problem.
No, from rural agents, I hear only if we have the right property, because they feel that if they have a rural property, I think it's completely a cop out.
Only the right property. Just to explain that a little bit.
So what they
bit
mean,
of interest in it.
yeah, what they mean is that they have a property sitting on their books, particularly in rural areas, that an estate agent might have property sitting on their books for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and they're worried that if it sits on the online bidding platform with no bids, that drives down the price.
Okay,
And I think that's a bit of a cop out actually, because I think that they don't know what the demand is going to be, and also I think they completely underestimate their buyers.
Doesn't it then, and then you might come in this, if there's a property that's sitting there in any sort of rural or
you don't even need to go to I mean, look, we'll have vendors who, and I think it's good to go back to the guide price, because why is it sitting as a homeless crisis? Why is a property sitting on? So in terms of, I think that a lot of the time that the reason that a property is sitting there is because it's overpriced. And why is it overpriced? Is because 4 or 5 agents go out and the vendor picks the agent who tells them that it's worth the most. So there's a bit of disingenuity in terms of saying, look, I reckon the agent thinks it's probably worth 450 and says, look, I think we'll get you 500. And sure, he's in now, he's got the listing, he throws up at 500, and then he's trying to roll back from there. So I think
it's a very short-sighted strategy for a estate agent.
It's an awful short. So we've had
it's way to stimulate in an attempt to stimulate.
Well, you see, what they'll do is, as you said, short-sighted, but then they'll end up falling out with their vendor ultimately, because it's a case of, well, you said it's worth 500, now you're telling me drop it to 450. So what we do again in terms of our processes, so when our agents go out in advance of the meeting, we'll have emailed on all of our market research. So basically we'll have taken all of the comparables off the property price register, all of the comparables in terms of guide price, asking prices off at Daft and My Home, put them on a report, send it on, and the agent will talk it through. And by the end of that conversation, the vendor 9 times out of 10 will have a fair idea what their property is worth. We actually find the guide price through consensus. We're not going out telling we're not tapping the walls and telling the vendor what the property's worth. We're showing them, this is the research we've done, this is the process we've gone through, and based on that, now obviously it's art, not science, we think our advised market value is from this to that, and I think the vendor then is comfortable. Okay, look, they can be surprised on the upside, they can be surprised on the downside. I think where properties end up sitting on the market too long is that agents go out and bluff to get the business, and it's in no one's interest, and it just sits.
But is there a lot of suspicion, do you think, between the buyer and the vendor in both circumstances, or what do you think?
Between the buyer and the vendor, in terms of suspicion
in relation to manipulating the
well, I suppose their goals are polar opposites. Obviously the buyer is trying to get the lowest price possible, and the vendor is trying to get the highest price possible. So I don't know if there's suspicion. I mean, look, ultimately,
is there a lack of trust, in other words?
Not on our system, because we put.
That's pretty transparent, isn't it?
But see, what we do is we just break down all in that. There's no lack of trust, because everything's been happening out in the open, transparently. Everybody can see what's happening. So,
what's reaction like then from buyers to that to your?
Well, we find that everybody loves it. I mean, when I answer the phones in the office, and I'm surprised, because we've been doing this quite a while now, and they go, so we have to train all. When the phone rings with us, typically they've come through Daft or My Home. That's where they've found our property. So we have to say, the question we get through the office all the time, are there any offers on the property? And we're like, God, you still don't know they're on our website, so we have to keep hammering that home. Go to the website, which is auctioneera.ie.
Nicely done. No, look, I think that's great, but your company is relatively new, so it's good that you're experiencing growth, but particularly in the Dublin market. But are you noticing a slowdown in terms of housing?
In terms of pricing, yes, but look, I was expecting that for a long time. I think it's healthy. I think it's good. I think the head of one of the largest banks was out recently saying that, maybe should we relook at the macro-prudential rules in terms of 3.5 times salary? I think absolutely not. I think that is keeping a handbrake on prices. I think there's a number of factors playing into it. I mean, you've the macro-prudential rules 3.5 times. So if you take it, people can't pay more than they can borrow, and that's what caused all the problems last time around. People were borrowing 4 and 5 and 6 times their salaries. It's capped at 3.5 times, and if you take the average industrial wage, 39,000, if you double it for a couple, around the 80,000, 3.5 times the 80,000 brings you to late 2s, and you put a deposit on top of that, you're in 3s sort of territory. So,
which is in excess of the national average house price.
Well, no, you're correct. Yes, in Dublin it's 360, but that's fair enough. So the average. So I was talking on Twitter about this during the week. I was saying, should we expect, just on kind of back of backpack economics, should we expect the average price of a house in Ireland to trend towards 3.5 times the average industrial wage? Take the average salary, multiply it by where you're capped up, and it's not as simple as that, because house buyers tend to earn more than on average tend to earn. I don't want to get too technical, but I suppose my point is that handbrake, that buffer, was always going to kick in, and I think it has kicked in now. And on top of that, you've got increased supply, which is great. We're up at 20. I was looking at the graphs over the last 10 years. We got down to 5, 6, 7,000 houses a year. We're back up to 20,000.
So turning over.
Yeah, we don't want to go up to 90,000 again, but I think 20,000 is so. We've got more supply. We've got macro-prudential rules keeping a limit on it. There's more choice for buyers, and I think any vendor with a realistic guide price will sell his property.
We'll have to stop it there, Eddie. That was Eddie O'Driscoll, Director of Auctioneera, and thanks for joining us today. You can get in touch with the show by emailing hello@iPropertyRadio.com or on Twitter @iPropertyRadio.
Okay, that's it from us in studio today. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us here in studio. Also thanks to producer Katie Talon. We're back the same time next week. So from myself and Brian Fox, thank you so much.